So we are in Ois Gimel. It's page 195. Oh, I don't know. Page 195. And we're in the middle of Ois Gimel.
Good morning. Thank you.
So this is explaining that Oisius, words, letters, are considered kalim, which is vessels. And just like a vessel contains in it something of greater importance, so if you have food in a dish, the main thing is the food, not the dish. If you have money in a purse, the main thing is the money, not the purse. The keli is just a container. The main thing is what is inside, what is being contained. So spiritually, in all the world and all the spheres, there's also Eris and Kalim. There's light, which means that's the godly light and energy, and the Kali is there to contain it. But of course, Baruchnius, when you talk about spirituality, thank you very much, there is no such thing as anything that's physical. So when you say Kali, it's also spiritual, but the function of the spiritual element, which is called Kali, is to contain something much, much higher. So just like the Gashmias, building a house, the reason why Kalim and Oisius are called Avanim, called stones, because just like with stones, you put them together in a certain order, and in a certain way, they become a house. A lot of stones together make up a house. In that house, people could live, there's furniture and everything could be there. Baruchnius, when you take letters and you put them together, they also become a house, which means they contain in it something much higher, which is either content of intellect or the content will be something emotional. And depending on how many stones, depending on how you arrange the stones, that all that will determine what kind of a house it'll be and what could accommodate. So to Baruchni is depending on which letters of the alphabet, depending on how you arrange those very same letters, that will determine what's contained in it. So that means that when Hashem created the world, whether it's this world or the spiritual worlds, he said certain words, which means he said words with certain letters, and that was the keli through which the chayas was delivered in this world through these keli. So therefore, in every world, in Atzilus, in Bria, in Yetzira, in Asiya, there's Eris and Kalim. So if someone would ask, where exactly is the Kalim? In each world, there are Malachim, angels, there are Neshamas, there are souls, there are spheres. So where do the Kalim fit in the map? There's Neshamas, souls, there's Malachim, there are angels, and there are spheres. So where do the Kalim fit in? No. What does it mean it fits into spheros?
Spheros are themselves, they're vessels.
Right. Right. Kalim and spheros is the same thing. It means that the sphera consists of earth and kalim. Just like a human being is a neshama and a guf. So too, the spheres have an energy, which is the eris, and the kalim is the sphere itself. It's the part of the keli that contains the energy of the keli. That's what it is.
She's a good student, though.
Okay.
I have a question.
If you say so, you must be also someone who could evaluate. Yes.
It's true. If there's auras and keli, and the auras is made of light, then what are the keli made out of?
Also spiritual.
Where does it come
It's a little bit hard to picture when you say the keli is not physical, but it's a keli, because we always think of a pot, a pan, a dish, a box. But there are, even in our human experience, there's certain things which are keli, but they're not physical. I'll give an example. When you're not speaking but thinking, do you think with words or without words?
Yeah.
Try to think about it. What?
With words.
With words. And especially someone who speaks more than one language could testify that they think in their language. In fact, if they have to say something, they have to, like, sort of in their own mind, they have to translate it from one language to another language. We do think with words. The reason why it's even a question is because when you're thinking, you're so focused on the thought that you don't pay attention to the words. But we can't think without words. Words are vehicles of communication. So just like I can communicate to you what I'm thinking without words, my subconscious can't communicate to my conscious without words either.
So where's the keli?
Oh, so the words are the kalim. So if I'm thinking about something, and being that I speak English, so therefore I'm thinking in English words, those words are the kalim, but they're not physical. So why do we call them kalim? Because after everything's said and done, words are not the content. Words are only vehicles of communication. The content is the question, the answer, the emotion, the love, the fear, the whatever feeling it is. So what are words? Words are only a way that these feelings or these thoughts can be communicated from my subconscious to my conscious. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to think without words. So therefore, we can see a simple example of something which is not physical, it's not tangible, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't touch it, you can't taste it, and you can't hear it. None of the five senses. And yet, we use the term and keli, which means the intellect, the logic is the and the words are the kalim. The emotion is the and the words are the kalim. So too, on every level, the higher up you go, there's still going to be and keli, but in each level, it's the keli is also more refined, more abstract, more removed from concrete and tangible reality.
So what about the, when they say you have to make the keli to make the bracha, what they like, how do this?
So that's talking about a keli in a very physical sense. Hashem wants to give me parnasa. So I have to go and work. I have to plow the field and put seeds in the ground so that things should grow. That's the keli. So it's also the same thing. There's a bracha. The bracha from Hashem is actually chesed of atzilus, and that's going to give me parnasa. That's going to cause everything in the field to grow. But it won't grow unless I plant the seed and I do whatever needs to be done to make things grow. Or if a person wants to get a job, they pick themselves up, they go on an interview, they apply, and they do their best that the person should accept them for this job, and that's the keli. But if a person says, I believe that Hashem is taking care of me, and therefore I'm not going to go do anything about it, that means the bracha could be, that's the because that's really the bracha, but no keli. In Israel, we have the bracha of Hashem for complete victory. But the keli is the army. So even though it says in Tehillim, they come with horses and they come with chariots and we come with the name of Hashem. No, we also come with horses. We also come with chariots. The difference is they trust in their army, our trust in Hashem. And the army is the keli. Or to a doctor, the doctor is the keli. The medicine is the keli. Some people even have a custom that when they take medication, they say a little tefillah before, Yehi Ratzon, that this medicine should bring me refuah. In other words, to acknowledge that really it's Hashem that's giving the healing, but it's going through this capsule. So now, a little bit of a better understanding, what does it mean that in the Olam HaTorah, there's Shviras HaKelim? So he uses this analogy. There are not enough analogies in the world to explain anything up there because it's so different. So there are different analogies to help us look at it from different angles and get some idea. And I'll want to look at the words inside. So there's a line that begins with the words Mishviras HaKelim D'Tayu. See, it's underlined on page 195. So look one line before that. V'hinei. His Havas Ha'olam is the creation of the worlds, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, Umeshviras HaKelim D'Tayu. It's a result of the breaking of the Kelim of Tayu. What does that mean? Sheina Oisi is the Tayu Shenispardu. These are the Kalim of Toyu that became separated. So in other places, they explain this more. It means like this. So if I have 4 letters, 3 letters, Beis, Yud, Suf. What does that spell? Bait means a house. What if I separate the letters from one another? Take away the Beis, take away the Yud, take away the Suf. What happens now? What do I have? Nothing. In other words, once I take the letters and I separate one from the other, they're no longer a vessel to hold the content in it. The reason why it means a house is because the Beis and the Yud and the Suf are next to each other. And they're in this order. If it would be Beis, Suf, Yud, it would mean a different word. Yeah.
Prayer is a kela, tefillah is a kela, how to connect with Hashem. But for example, like kelim, we like definition, like we should have something physical to get connected, like to God, the spiritual seed.
Right.
But the tefillah.
The tefillah is also kela. The tefillah brings down Hashem's bracha to this world, and then I need the physical keli to bring the bracha down physically.
So kela would be not just
right. Keli is on many different levels, and in every place according to the context of that place would be the keli. If you want to express that you appreciate someone, you give them a gift. So the gift is the keli. The expression of appreciation is the If you want to tell someone that you don't appreciate them and you lock the door and don't let them in, so the act of locking the door is the keli. And the hate, unfortunately, that's coming out is the You can't call it light, but that in this context, light means energy, something which is not physical, the main thing. So the letters of Eila Matayo separated one from the other. And Mehenhu, and this is where it comes from, Rapach Nitzutzim, the 288 sparks, Shetzrichem Lizbarer Badalet Golius. And this needs to be elevated in all the 4 Golius, which means Yidden were in Golus in Babel, they were in Golus in the times of Purim, then they were in Golus in the times of Hanukkah, and now we're in the 4th Golus. We're not counting Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is a different category, but these are the 4 Golus. And now, first Babylon, and then Paras, which is Persia in the time of Haman, then Hanukkah with the Greeks, and now the Romans is Golus Edom. That's where we're in the Golus now. And how many sparks did it break down to? 288. Of course, there's an explanation in Kabbalah where that number comes from. But it's again using a metaphor. It's like a dish breaks, and it breaks into many pieces. It can break into 2 pieces, 3 pieces, 10 pieces. The Havdil, when you sit by the Seder and you break your matzah, you're supposed to break it into 5 pieces. Sometimes it breaks into 6 pieces. Here it broke into 288 pieces. Asher Reish Beis Nitzutzis, and these 288 sparks, Nizbaru B'Golus Mitzrayim, they were primarily elevated in the times of Mitzrayim. Like it says, V'gam Erev Rab Itam, that there was a multitude of people that went out of Mitzrayim with the Yidden. These are Egyptians that converted, and the Torah calls them Erev Rab. So the Arizal writes that the Rab is Bigamatria 202, implying that 202 sparks came out, which means when the people came out, and also all the vessels they took out of Egypt, in that was the embodiment of all the sparks. It went out of a place of impurity and went into the place of purity to be used to serve Hashem. So 288 minus 202, you're left with 86. 86 netzutzes, yes.
What is the actual practical definition of a spark?
What do you use the term spark?
What is
Generally speaking, it means, again, godly energy. But we use the term spark, just like a spark comes from the fire, but it's not connected to the fire, it's disconnected. But it's still fire, it's not rubber or glass, it's fire. So too, this is any of Hashem, but it came down very low and sort of disconnected from its source, or at least we perceive it as disconnected from its source. So it's called a spark. That's why we call it a spark. So from then until now, we have to be Mavara 86 sparks, And the number 86 is also the gematria hateva. So now he's going to go into the word hateva. Yes.
Was the Arab brought himself with 202 sparks? Like, is there a connection between that number 2?
Of course, yeah.
Even
I
though they
know
were
it
like-
doesn't say there were 202 people,
Right.
but apparently the 202 sparks were embodied in the people that went out physically. And it was also embodied. Remember, they had to take out all the vessels and borrow it from the Egyptians.
Right.
In these vessels and these items, that's where the sparks that went out.
It's interesting because the Arab were also the ones that caused the Hidayah later. So.
Right, because these were the sparks of Tohu, and they were tohuing away. You know,
So they weren't like settled.
apparently, yeah.
Just
Yeah,
I just want to say, like, what we explained, like, last time, that, like, the letters and all of that, it's like the word with the sparkles, right? With the,
right. So this explains what does it mean that in Olam HaTohu, the letters were taken apart. So the content, meaning the went away, and the letters themselves became just like before. We said if you have three letters, bayis, beis, yitzuf, it means a word. When you separate them, these letters no longer have the same meaning. They became lower. Lower in the sense they have no meaning anymore, just a letter. So Baruch Nisa means that those kalim fell very low, and from them came about the creation of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asir.
so technically, when we are speaking like in a, let's say, good words and like holy words, so we are also make like.
We have all these sparks in us. Everything in the world has those sparks in them.
Rabbi,
Yeah,
so with the 280,
88,
well, how many came out? 200.
202,
So they didn't have Torah back then.
right.
So how did
The sparks.
We have Torah and we just working in 83 or 82.
Okay, so that was the question I was going to go into now. That how is it possible that in Egypt they were there for 210 years and they elevated 202 sparks, almost one spark per year. And how many people were there? 600,000. From then until now, there are billions of Jews that lived. We have the Torah. So there are billions of Jews, over 3,300 years, and we're dealing with 86 sparks. How does that make sense? It's totally out of proportion. So there's another question to answer this question. And that question is, if we say that everything in this world has 86 sparks, it comes from the sparks of Tohu. How could you say 86? There's millions and billions and trillions and chachillion things in this world. So there's got to be that many sparks. If every blade of grass is a spark, and every piece of wood is a spark, and every room and every wall and everything is a spark, so there's infinite sparks in the world, not 288. So the answer is, like a lot of things in Chassidus, it means even though there are infinite sparks, but there are 288 groups and categories of sparks. So just like you would say that the world consists of 4 levels, Daimim, Tzemeach, Chai, and Medaber. Then you say only 4? There's billions in each group there are in each group there are billions of levels. In the human realm, for example, there are hundreds and thousands of different levels of intelligence, hundreds and thousands of different levels of talent, hundreds and thousands and millions of different levels of feelings and emotion and character traits and personalities. It's infinite, but it's all one category, which is the human category, the human kingdom. And the same thing in animals. There's so many differences amongst animals. So here too, when we say 288 sparks, it means 208 groups and categories. But each category contains infinite amount of sparks. That's where everything comes in this world. Based on that, we can understand the answer to the question. And that is that if there are many details to a spark, so Eibishter created the whole world with a similar structure. And the structure is that there are details, and the details are all extensions of something general that includes all the details. Which means that just like it's in a person, the brain is where the neshama initially connects to the body. And from the brain, the energy and the life force of the neshama spreads to all the organs of the body. And even bagashmis, the chayas, the life of a person, the vitality is in the brain and in the heart. From there, it spreads to all the parts of the body. In an army, there's the top people, the top generals who make all the plans, and it goes down and down, down, different levels. And from the top, it goes down to everyone has their job that they need to do. In a government, there's a king, there are ministers. And now, the way the world is set up today, okay, there's no king, there's a president, but there's a federal government. There is people who are the governors of each state, and then there is the mayor of each city, and then a person who's in charge of each county, and so on and so forth. The system it starts from the top and breaks down to the details. With the sparks, it's the same thing. There is the essence, the source of all the details, and then there are the details. In Mitzrayim, those neshamas were called neshamas klolius. I'm sure you're familiar with the term. Neshamas klolius means souls that include in them hundreds and thousands and millions of souls. For example, all our souls. Okay, here's another question. How do we say that the Jewish people is made up of 600,000 souls? That was in Mitzrayim. But now there are millions and billions of Jews from the beginning of time till now. There's billions of Jews. Why do we keep saying 600,000? In fact, it's known that the word Yisrael, the letters Yud, Shin, Reish, Aleph, is an acronym. Yesh, Shishim, Riboy, Oisius, L'Torah. There's 600,000 letters in the Torah because there's 600,000 Jews, but there are much more than 600,000. So the answer is, Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, there's 600,000 general souls. And from these general souls, branches and all sorts of details extend from it. So it's like having 600,000 trees, but how many branches are there? Millions. How many leaves are there? Billions. But there's 600,000 trees. And from these trees, there are all the details. So basically, in the neshamas, there's also, they are the general neshamas, and all our neshamas of all generations that followed were extensions of their souls. And that's one of the reasons what they did had an impact on all of us for all future generations. Why should we all suffer because of what they did? And the answer is because they contained in them our souls. So when they did whatever they did and it did damage to their soul, it did damage to all of us. It's like a mother who's expecting a baby and she does something which is damaging. Why should the baby suffer? It's not the baby being punished. She did something to herself. The baby was part of her. So unfortunately, the baby gets damaged by what she did, whether it's drugs or whatever she did, that she did damage to the child that's in her. So those souls, all our souls were contained in their souls. Yeah.
So if Chas v'Shalom will do something that's not appropriate to ourselves, we affect another Jew in the same negative manner.
Yeah, that's because all Jews are connected to each other. Right. But Baruch Hashem, if we do something good, we also affect all the Jews. And the good is always more powerful than the opposite. Anyway, so let's put this all together. So that means that those neshamas were called neshamas klal, these general souls, and they contain them all the details. Because of that, when it came to elevating the sparks, they had the capacity to elevate the nucleus of the entire spark, the head of the spark. And when you elevate the head, all the details get elevated with them. I always think of this example. Some of you may have heard it from me last year, but this is an example that's a perfect example to the situation, at least to some extent. And that is that sometimes in a city or in a country, there's something called a blackout. Electricity, something gets damaged, electricity closes down. I remember personally something that happened, I think it was 20 or 21 years ago, where there was a huge, probably one of the biggest blackouts. It was a Friday afternoon. All the electricity went down. It was in the summer. And here in America and partially in Canada. And the reason was because something went wrong by Niagara Falls, so it affected America and Canada. And I remember they said on the radio, after everything said and done, that there were 55 million customers that were affected by this blackout. How long did it take him to put it back together again? It took about 24 hours. Let's stop and think for a second. Imagine there would be a blackout for 55 million places, and the only way to fix it is that you have to go to each place and each electrical outlet, and you have to turn in a screw a little bit tighter. That's all. How long would it take? 24 hours?
24
Maybe 24 years. And how many people would you need to do the job?
million.
Exactly. So how come they're able to do it so fast? Because they didn't go to each detail. They fixed something in the general power station. I remember right now, 500,000 customers got electricity. A few hours later, 20,000 customers over here got electricity. 30,000 customers over there. How did 30,000 people in one shot get electricity? Because when you fix the power station, all the details get fixed. So basically, in Mitzrayim, the Yidden had these general neshamas. So therefore, whatever they went through, they elevated the general part of the nitzutz, and as a result of that, everything got elevated. In fact, what is it, that Hashem has been leading us through different parts of the world? There was a time where Yidden were in Babylon. Then there was a time where Yidden were in other places. Then the time Yidden were in Europe. Now most Jews are in America and in Israel. So what is that all about? It says one of the reasons are because Hashem sends us where we can elevate more of the general part of the spark. And by doing that, it affects everything else. Like if everything in the world is sparks, who elevates the sparks in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? Or 100 feet down below the Atlantic Ocean? How does that get elevated? So it must be that it's all connected. And if I make a bracha on water in my house, to a certain extent, it doesn't really affect the water in my cup. But there's many, many bodies of water that are connected to the water that I'm drinking. And the bracha that I make here affects that. Spiritually, there's a whole network of things, how they're connected, which we don't even begin to understand. So therefore, the Eibishter leads us to those places in the world. In the times of Mitzrayim, the sparks were located in Mitzrayim. In the times of Babel, the main part of the spark were located in Babel. And there was a time it was mainly in Spain. And there was a time it was mainly here or mainly there. And through the Torah mitzvahs that we did in that spot, it had an effect on the rest of the world. Naturally, we need a bigger team and we need much more time because we're dealing with the details. So that's our Rabbi to elevate the sparks. But now he's going into what is this about the fact that the sparks, 86, is Bigamatria HaTeva, which means the nature or the laws of nature. So let's look a little bit further. This is where Iker Hu Begolos Achron. And the main thing is now in this last Golos, we're up to the last part. Here's the main avoid of elevating the sparks that are hidden in nature. In a certain way, the difficulty in this Golos is in a certain way much more than all the Golos and that preceded it. Teva. What is the definition of the word Teva? Rushay Tzalila Ushkia. The word Teva could mean a few things. One thing it could mean, like we have in Azyasha, Tubu B'Yamsev, it means drowned or sinking in the water. Is one definition of the word Teva. Shkia, that it's sinking in the water. Another meaning, Chem Meloshen Igul V'Tabas. The word Teva has the same letters as the word Tabas, which means a ring. What are the two things? What is the association? What is nature? Masha emes eine nira. Nature is something that doesn't allow us to see the emes. Not only we don't see the emes, but hasheker nira the emes. It appears to us that which is sheker is really emes, and that which is emes we don't see at all. For example, something which sinks in the water. The water covers it up, called sadapina, from all sides. I guess when you cover something, let's say with a cloth, you can see something's underneath. But when something is in the water and it's covered, you don't even know that it's there. The water covers up it. The truth is that this thing, which is in the water, is just as complete now when it fell in the water, just like it was before when it was out of the water. No difference. The only difference is Sheunelam v'nignas teichamayim is hidden and it's concealed in the water. Hamachasam say that cover it. Kitabas like a ring haseviv bashva mikol tzad that covers it equally from all sides. Like I said before, if you take a blanket, you take a sheet, and you cover a bunch of boxes, it's covering it, but you can see there's something underneath. This is higher, this is lower, this is like this is like that. When something is covered with water, there's nothing in the water that indicates that there's something there being covered. You can't see anything in the water. It circles it and covers it from all sides. To the eye of the one that's looking, nidme, it appears, and the way we perceive it is that davar hanitma einenu klal b'metzius, as if it doesn't exist. So there could be a diamond there. The diamond could be worth millions of dollars. I don't see it. And not only that, I don't see the emes. I see something which is sheker, which covers up the truth, and it appears as if that which is false is really true. So let's say, for example, if a person is really your enemy and pretends to be your friend, gets dressed up differently and speaks differently to make an impression that they're your friend, the truth is this is a criminal and a person that hates and he's ready to kill someone, but he's disguising himself. So number one, you don't see the emes, you don't realize that this person is an enemy and this person is a threat to your life because they're dressed as if they're different. They speak with a smooth tongue and they speak in a way as if they're your best friend. And the sheker seems to be emes. It looks like this is somebody who I can trust and somebody that's a friend. And that's what Teva is all about. In other words, nature covers up ungodliness. The truth is, when the sun goes up and the sun goes down, this is incredible Gili Elokus. Godliness being revealed when watching something phenomenal happening. When a baby is born, this is something phenomenal that God is doing. Trees are growing, everything, the fact that we can walk and talk and understand and use our brain, all these are amazing, godly miracles happening on a constant basis. But because it's Teva, we don't see it. Not only we don't see it, it appears, and as many people unfortunately believe, it's totally independent, has nothing to do with Hashem. He's not part of the equation at all. In this sense, this last and final Golus is in a sense worse than the previous Golus. How's it worse? If the idea of Teva is all about covering up the emes and not seeing the emes, in that sense, years ago there was still a speck of light. The darkness we're experiencing now, total eclipse, and you don't see any emes, that's more in our generation than before. Hine Oz, in those days, meaning in earlier days, Agam Shoyoloyo Leinu, Ribe Lamas Vestadium, Rahman al-Islam, there were so many concealments. Gzeiris Royas Rahman al-Islam, there were horrible decrees against Yidden and all the things that we know that happened in previous generation. Panim Hayanira Emes Matecha Sheker. People saw the emes. The things that happened did not block and conceal the emes. People still knew the emes, that it's from Hashem and through Hashem, and God is behind it, and there's something which is beyond our understanding. They still felt that it's the hands of Hashem. And what's going on out there in the world didn't disturb them so much. In our generation, the most difficult and heaviest part of this Golus is Bagboras HaTeva, that nature and everything about nature is so strong, is so dominating. Shasheker nira le'emes. The sheker looks like it's absolutely true. The seviv is hakol, the eagle, ki eagle ha-seviv makib kotten v'godol. I guess even in the fact, I mean, he doesn't say this, but I'm saying even in the fact that years ago, most people believed in the existence of a God. In the recent generations, with science coming out and giving all sorts of explanations how the world exists, I mean, before there were different arguments who the God is, but that there's a creator, everyone believed. And not only that, but even those that believe in Avodah Zarah believe that there's a God who's the God of all the gods. But in the recent generations, people don't believe at all that there's a God, which means that Teva, science and nature, the way people look at the world, totally, completely conceals God's presence in a way like never known before. And that makes it so much more difficult to be able to see through all this darkness and see through the sheker. You know, they say that right now, what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, besides everything that's happening, unfortunately, in the land itself, is, yesterday they were saying that 3 countries, Iran, Russia, and China, have launched a campaign of misinformation, of false information, putting it out all over social media. Hundreds of millions of people are reading things that never happened and causing people to be angry and hate Israel because of sheker. And people take it for granted if it's written here, if it's in the media, right away, especially if it's Yidden. It's interesting, like when they said the Jews blew up the hospital, everybody came out in a rage ready to kill. When they found out that, no, they blew up the hospital, so first of all, okay. First of all, the numbers changed. Before it was 500, 700 people, then it turned into 10 people. And the second thing is that there are still people who still don't believe it. The other day, there was a minister in the Israeli government that said that a lot of the things they're saying is not true. There's video. It's not true. It just never happened. It's not like the Holocaust that 50 years later they said it never happened. While it's happening, they're saying it never happened. So basically, sheker is something which covers up on the emes. And in terms of godliness, this is the real definition of golus, where you don't see godliness, and anything which is sheker appears to be that this is really what's happening, but in reality, it's covering up on the emes. We'll soon see why he's saying all this. This is all going to lead up to how we're supposed to deal with the Messiah. Okay, to be continued. I'm going to give this out, and tomorrow we'll do, this is like a little review of these chapters. I'm giving this out so you can write on it. These are the terms, and it's also the questions on each page. So before we go into the next ice, we'll do a little review from Aleph, Beis, and Gimel. And for now, we'll do the kapitel. David should perform miracles of miracles in Eretz Yisrael that the whole world would see, complete and total victory to Yidden, and complete and total defeat to the enemies of Yidden. Lam Natseach, Mizmel David, Yancha Adonai v'yom tzara, Yisageb Choshem Elohei Yaakov, Yishlach Ezrecha mikodesh u'mitzion Yisadeka, Yizker kol menchesecha v'oiloscha Yidashne Sema. Iten lecha chilvavecha v'chol atzascha yemale. Niranana b'shua secha u'b'shem Eloheinu nidgel. Yemale Adonai kol mishalesecha. Ata yadaiti ki Yeshia Adonai Mashiach. Yanehu mishmei kodshay. B'gvures yesha yeminei. Eile v'rechev v'eile b'susim v'nachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu nazkir. Hey ma'akarav v'nafalu v'nachnu kamnu v'naseidot. Adonai Yeshia Hamelech Yaneinu v'yem karekim. Okay. Oh. Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski. Thank you, everybody. This is Chassidus.
No, I'm just to go downstairs and then I'll turn back. No, I'm in school. I'm teaching. I just finished teaching. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
And tzedakah, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski.
Have a good weekend.
What? The nickel? Just a lot.